Hello everyone, my name is Em. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be doing my June wrap-up. So June was without a doubt my best reading month of the year. I read 20 books and I had an average rating of 4.35 stars. It was a really good month, and I'm so grateful because it was also a really busy month as we wrapped up at the end of the school year and going on vacation, and there was just a lot of things going on, and I felt like I didn't have a lot of reading time, but the time I did have was filled with a lot of quality and a lot of quantity, but I felt like the quality of books I was reading for my reading taste was really truly excellent. 15 of the books I read were from my own library. I think 3 of them were rereads. I only read 3 books from the library, and then the 2 left over were like audiobooks from emjaereads or like some sort of subscription based company like that. And 9 of the books I read were by a author of color, and 10 of the books I read were either had queer characters or was written by a queer author. I don't track specifics and I don't go too hard or too deep because that always feels a little bit icky to me to be diving too deeply into an author's identity. It's a very loose umbrella. So let's start off by talking about my DNFs, since that's where we start every time. I had 2 DNFs, and unfortunately they were both from my TBR jar. I DNF'd His Highland Queen by Dahlia Rose, and I DNF'd this one fast. I only got 13 pages in, and there were just too many grammatical errors for me to continue. Like, so many that it was distracting, it made the book hard to read, and I just knew at 13 pages that I couldn't go the whole book. And also the dialogue was not good. The dialogue felt really stilted. It felt very unrealistic. Like, people just do not talk like that. It doesn't matter if it's historical, fantasy, science fiction, mystery, like, just people just do not talk the way the characters in this book were written to talk. So that was a pretty quick DNF. And then I also did finally officially DNF The Affair of the Mysterious Letter by Alexis Hall. This was from my TBR jar for May, and I got 25 pages in, and I said in my TBR for June that I would roll it over and give it one more month. And I thought about starting this so many times in June, and every time I thought about picking it up, I reached for a different book instead. So clearly I do not want to read this book anymore, which is fine. I will be unhauling it, and it will go to somebody who will read it and who will love it, instead of just languishing on my shelves for all of eternity. And then next we're going to talk about the book that I do not have a physical copy of, because I always forget those if I don't do them right off the bat. I read an advanced copy of Clever Girl by Hannah McGregor. This is a academic critique kind of Jurassic Park, and basically about how Jurassic Park the movie is queer coded and what it has to say about monstrous women, and I really loved it. It's pretty short, but I feel like I need to pre-order it because I had a PDF copy, and you can't highlight a PDF copy in an e-reader. At least I can't on my Kobo, or if I can, I don't know how to do it. And so I really want to buy a finished copy because I would have highlighted the crap out of the arc if I had been able to. So that was like a super delightful surprise. I gave it, it's an easy 5 stars. I did come into it pre-biased because I do deeply love Hannah McGregor. It was a really good time. If you also like Jurassic Park and like feminist critique of pop culture, I think you would also have a good time with it. It was fun. Okay, let's continue on with the books that I did pull from my TBR jar for this month that were a success. The first one was a giant success. I had pulled God Killer by Hannah Kaner, and I loved this so much that I grabbed Sunbringer from my library and read that this month as well. And I do not typically roll on with series this quickly, but I just loved it so much. And then I also am a little mad because I, for some reason, thought this was a duology, and it is in fact a trilogy, and now I have to wait, and I'm mad about it. But in this series, we are following a number of characters, but our primary character is Kissin. And in this world, gods very much exist, and they are in the humans' lives, and they are meddlesome, and they are selfish and self-centered and narcissistic and all those things. And it creates a problem, and the gods start to pit their followers against each other, and there's this big war between the humans and the gods. And in order to save his people, the king outlaws the worship of gods, because without the worship of humans, gods lose their power, basically. And there are these people called god killers who go around the various kingdoms, and they destroy shrines, and they just try to intimidate people into not continuing their worship of gods. And Kissen, our main character, is a god killer, and she meets this young girl named Inara who has somehow found herself bonded with a god of white lies, and they cannot be separated without it killing both of them. So they embark on a journey together, and I love it. It's got a lot of things I really like. It's got a road trip element. It's got a lot of really awesome queer and disability rep, like that I was not expecting in a fantasy novel, because let's be honest, like it's not super common, like it's getting there, but this was so widespread. It wasn't like one token disabled character, one quote token queer character, and then that was it. It was like widespread. Like there were multiple people in different identities, and it was lovely and wonderful. And I loved Kissen. She is such a tough character, and she's become hard as a tool of self-perseverance. And she's just absolutely fantastic. I really loved her. I did not love book 2 as much as I loved book 1. Book 1 was an easy 5 stars. Book 2 I think I gave 4.5. But it wasn't that anything really changed. Like the writing is still really great. I love the storytelling. I love the characters. Just we spent this book having a road trip where these 4 people are off on their own missions, and then they are brought together by happenstance and then choose to continue with each other to help each other out on their own journeys. And I really love that concept. And then in this one, because of the major plot that's going on, they ended up separated for a significant chunk of the book, and I just didn't love them apart like that as much as I loved them all together. But I am still, it's like one of my favorite series I've read this year. Definitely God Killer is one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and I'm really excited to see how Hannah Kaner is going to end this series with the 3rd book whenever that comes out. But I absolutely loved this, and I think if you also like road trip fantasy, definitely check it out because it was such a good time. I also grabbed Hurricane Lizards and Plastic Squid by Thor Hansen from my TBR jar, and this is a nonfiction about how flora and fauna on the planet are responding to climate change and the way that they are adapting, and what that means either for that individual creature or plant, or what that could mean for a butterfly effect towards the rest of nature that surrounds that particular thing. And I found this to be not as much of an existential dread book as I was anticipating. I actually found this to be kind of hopeful in a lot of ways, and I really liked it. And there was a lot of really fun information in here about animals that I didn't know, and just kind of a nice like low-key way to talk about climate change without it being we're all gonna die, which I appreciate. Next, we're going to go on to my challenge books. So for the Betty's Pages Challenge Your Shelf Reading Challenge, Betty Pages is an indie bookstore in Illinois. I read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror book. This book is fucked up. There is a lot of violence. I mean, no surprise, but a lot of violence, pretty graphic. This is about 4 friends who have a incident while hunting while they're in their early 20s, and then we are following them 10 years later as they start to pay the price for that hunting incident. And yeah, this is pretty gruesome. It's bleak. I would not read this. If you can't read violent deaths of animals, don't pick up this book, because there are so many animals that die in really horrible, gruesome ways, and I wasn't super anticipating that, so that was kind of rough. But I think if you really like Stephen Graham Jones, like if you read My Heart is a Chainsaw, like definitely pick this one up too. It's not campy and fun the way My Heart is a Chainsaw is, but you can definitely see J. Daniels like things in one of the characters in this book. So that part was fun. But yeah, I'm glad I finally read this because this has been on my I want to read list in my head for a really long time, and I definitely have been wanting to read more of Stephen Graham Jones's backlist, so I'm really glad I read this. But just check content warnings. And then for Buzzword Readathon, the prompt for June was read a book where the title has words that repeat, and I read There by Tommy Orange. This is a book I have had on my TBR, I'm not even joking, for maybe 6 years, and I've been putting it off because I've been super intimidated because I just kept hearing how heavy it was, and I'm so glad I finally read it. It was not as heavy as I had been anticipating. I was anticipating it to be kind of trauma porny, and it wasn't. Like, there's heavy topics, but I never felt like Tommy Orange was manipulating me just for the sake of getting an emotional reaction out of me. Like, it all felt vital, it felt earned, it felt necessary. But in this one, we're following 12 people, and each perspective is kind of told vignette style, and it's one of those books where you have to read for a while to find out how all these people are connected. And I really love that storytelling concept, and it worked really well for me. I thought the writing was really good. I thought the characterizations were really good, because 12 people, that's a lot, and I didn't get confused about who was who. So I really liked it. The ending did rip my heart out, but it was so good. I haven't been doing this. 5 stars? Ooh, I think I gave this like 4.25, and I think I gave this a 4 as well. I think 4.25 was like my most popular rating. We'll see. And then I also listened to The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is book 3 in the Inheritance Games, and this is a YA mystery series that is kind of like, not Glass Onion, I just watched that one. What's the first one called? Knives Out. It's kind of like Knives Out, where this girl inherits this fortune from this Texas billionaire who she has never met before, and one of the caveats is that she has to live in his house for a whole year before she can inherit the fortune fully. And this, we're getting to the end of that year, and I won't tell you anything else because it's all a massive spoiler, but it's not a murder mystery series. It's more like a puzzle and riddle series, which I really enjoy. The audiobooks are really fun, and I'm excited to read book 4 and see like where the story is going to go, because this definitely felt like the end of Avery's story, our main character. So yeah, it'll be cool to see what else happens in this series. I can't remember what I gave this. I probably gave this a 4 or 4.25, because honestly that's kind of the average. Oh, we have the first disappointment. I tried to do a compliment sandwich and do the ones I enjoyed first, and then do the ones that were kind of disappointing, and then do the ones that I really liked again. I read The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This one made me so sad. I thought I was gonna like this one so much because it had so many buzzwords of things that I like. It's desert fantasy, there's gin, it's got like kind of a quest thing going on, but I never felt like the characters or the writing lived up to like what the synopsis was on the back. I also think because I didn't do this intentionally, but I happened to reread The City of Brass in June by Shannon Chakraborty, and that's one of my favorite books of all time. And then I read this right after, and there are a lot of parallels between those two books. But I think Shannon Chakraborty is a better writer in her debut than Chelsea Abdullah was in her debut. So unfortunately, I think I gave it like a 3, and it just didn't capture me the way I had really hoped it would, and that's such a bummer because I've just had this on my TBR since it came out, and I really thought it was going to be like a 5-star, and it wasn't. So that's too bad. And honestly, I can't even remember what the plot was now, so I can't even tell you what it's about because it's just all flown out of my head. And I only read it like 2 weeks ago. Another one that I didn't super love was What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. And when I say I didn't love, it was still a fine time. I was talking about this with my husband because he really liked this, and I didn't like it as much as I liked What Feasts at Night, but what I told him is T. Kingfisher is kind of hit or miss for me. Sometimes when I love her books, I really, really love them. And then sometimes I don't love them. But when I don't love a T. Kingfisher, it's still not a bad book. It's just one that I didn't love as much as I thought I was going to. So this is a companion novel to What Feasts at Night. And so we're following Alex again, but this time Alex has gone home to whatever fictional country they're from that I don't remember what it's called, Galatia. And I did like the themes of grief and PTSD that were in this book. I thought those were the strongest parts, but I thought this moved really slow. And honestly, the best part for me was, oh, can I remember his name? Oh yeah. My favorite part of this book, honestly, was Agnes's mustache. Angus. The best part of this book for me was Angus's mustache and Miss Potter. Those were the highlights of the book. Like, I could have just read a novella about those two and I probably would have had more fun. So I don't know. I think if you loved What Feasts at Night, you could like go either way with this one. There are no mushrooms in this book. So, you know, if the mushrooms freaked you out in the other one, maybe go to this one. I also listened to Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. This was my second go with this book. I tried to read it right after it came out when it was indie published, and I DNF'd it 60% of the way in. And then I picked it up again to give it another try now that it's traditionally published. And I finished it, and it's fine. I think I gave it a 3.25. It's just more action than I want in a cozy fantasy. It's not a bad book. I think the writing is good. I like all the characters. I think if you like Legends and Lattes and you don't mind a book that is very similar in terms of plot. Now it does deviate quite a bit in plot, but the setup is very similar with opening up a bookstore and tea shop in this town, and so it's got a lot of those conventions. I do like that our couple in here have been a couple for a while, and so I like reading books where they aren't learning how to be a couple. They've been a couple for a while, and so it's more showing like how you navigate being in a long-term relationship. I did like that part. I did like the characters. There's too much peril in this book. When I pick up a cozy fantasy, I'm not looking for the main character's life to be in danger multiple times. Like, it's just not the vibe I'm going for. So I thought this was fine. I won't be continuing on with the series though. I just want a little bit more cozy and a little less death or potential death in my books. All right. We're out of the pointing middle. That's nice. I also finally read Alebrijes by Donna Barba Higuera. I gave this 4.5, I believe. And this is middle grade. This was on my TBR for middle grade March, and I didn't get around to it, but I finally did this month. And this is sci-fi dystopian set on Earth after climate change has undone how we live as a society. So technology is gone, the big cities are gone, people live together in these smaller towns, and this one is about abuse of power, and I don't want to give away too much because I thought it was really beautiful. It is definitely heavier, and I felt like the pacing was a little wonky on this one. It took us a really long time to get to like the main plot, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing because I felt like we needed the setup to really understand like everything that these characters are going through. But anyways, our main character Leandro, he and his sister Gabby are orphaned, and there's a really strict hierarchy in this town of who can have what and who can eat what foods, and the fresh fruits are reserved for the elite people in this village, and Leandro's sister Gabby steals a strawberry from the market, which is forbidden to the lower class, and Leandro takes the fall for it and is exiled into the body of a automaton, and that's all I'm going to tell you because I feel like everything else is a spoiler. So this is really good. But yeah, I would be interested. I'm trying to get one of my twins to read this because I'd be interested to hear what like the appropriate age group for this book thinks of this concept, but we're not quite into dystopian yet. We're working on it. They finally both of my twins finally read The Hunger Games this month, so we'll see. We'll see if I can get them into it. And then I made more progress in the Memoirs by Lady Trent series. I read The Tropic of Serpent. This is book 2. I love this one so much. I gave this 4.5. I liked it better than book 1. And in this, where it's a couple years after book 1, and Isabella is going to this jungle on an expedition. There's so much action in this one, so much adventure. We get introduced to a character who is Ace, which is really exciting. I love that part. so much, and I'm just loving this series. I know I've only read 2 books, but every time I pick up another book in this series, I just love it a little bit more, and it's so fun, and I love Isabella, and I love the audiobooks because Kate Reading reads it, and she's one of my favorites, and we're going to talk about Kate Reading again in a few books, but it's so fun. Like, if you like academic-y fantasy, this is a great one. And then I read It Came From the Closet, Queer Reflections on Horror. This is a collection of essays by queer and trans authors about horror movies and how a certain horror movie relates back to an experience that author has had in their life. I tabbed quite a bit. This spoils the heck out of every horror movie that is talked about. So like, keep that in mind. I don't care. I cannot watch horror movies. So having them spoiled was perfectly fine for me. There are also a lot of movies in this collection that I've never even heard of. So that was cool to learn about these other movies, especially like foreign horror films. I found that really interesting. Not every essay obviously was a hit, but I really, really liked it. I can't remember exactly what I gave this, but it was definitely in the 4-star range. It might have been a 4.5 or a 5, something like that. I really liked this. And then, as mentioned earlier, I did reread The City of Brass by Shannon Chakraborty just for funsies. This is one of my absolute favorite books. This is also one of my favorite fantasy series. I love this so much. This was really fun to reread. This is about Nari, who is a con artist in Egypt or in Cairo, and she is doing a con and accidentally summons a jinn who reveals that she is not actually human. She is part of this ancient line of healers, and he takes her back to the city of Devabad where her people are from, and there's a lot of, it's this very much a political fantasy. I love it so much. I love Nari. She is so snarky and smart but still compassionate, and like, she just wants to have her family, to have a people. And I love how this book sets up. The ending for this book is one of my favorites. I remember reading this for the first time, and the ending just kind of took my breath away. And at the time, this had just come out, and having to wait for book 2 felt impossible. I just didn't know how I would do it. I am gonna keep rereading the series very slowly, just kind of wiggling it in whenever I have time, but this was absolutely delight. Still a 5-star. Will love it forever. All right, my other 2 rereads is I started to reread the Lady Sherlock series by Sherry Thomas. Book 1 is A Study in Scarlet Women, and book 2 is A Conspiracy in Belgravia. This is a gender-swapped Sherlock Holmes retelling, and I love this so much. Charlotte, our main character, is everything. I don't have words to talk about how much I love these books. Kate Reading does the audiobooks, and she's just phenomenal as Charlotte, and I love these characters. I love that this is, like, while Charlotte is our main character, like, this is very much an ensemble series where you grow to know so much about all of the characters in this book and to love them so much, and having like the books where they all come together are some of my favorite in the series. I don't love the mystery in A Conspiracy in Belgravia as much as the other ones, but the relationship dynamics that evolve and develop in this book are so important for the rest of the series and are so fun to watch that I give this one a 4.5 just because I don't like the mystery, but I love everything else. Like, I love everything else. It's so good. And yeah, this is definitely one of those series where you cannot read them out of order because they are all connected. And book 8 just came out. I think it's book 8, might be book 9, but I'm so excited to see what's going to happen to everybody in the next one. But I'm definitely going to continue my reread and finish that before I dive in to the new book because it's just giving me all the serotonin right now. The other series I read, I'm missing a book. I don't know where it is, but I read volume 7 and 8 of Witch Hat Atelier this month. I made the mistake of hooking my twins onto this manga series, and so they probably have volume 7. But this is a manga series about Coco, who is learning how to be a witch, and it's very cozy, very sweet. I loved book 7 so much. You really get into Coco, our main character, and her relationship with Kifri, who is the witch she is the apprentice for, and you just get more into their relationship, and they have such a sweet, like, adopted dad adopted daughter relationship and watching them grow in their trust and be more emotionally vulnerable with each other. Like, it was lovely. It was so great. I absolutely loved it. I didn't love volume 8 as much. For a large part of this volume, nothing happened. And like, there were a lot of like cute panels. I was like, oh yeah, that's cute, or oh yeah, that's kind of funny. But it was just kind of like, it felt like filler, and I wasn't into it. And I remember thinking, God, nothing's happened in this volume. And then a big thing happened right at the end. So I am really excited to go into volume 9 to see what's going to happen with the thing that happened, because I need to know. I've realized my least favorite volumes are the ones with Tate, I think is his name, this character on the front. The two that he's been in aren't my favorite. I don't really like his character as much, and I don't love the dynamic he brings to the main characters. I really like it when it's the 4 apprentices with the 2 wizards that are apprenticing them. Like, that found family dynamic is really my favorite, and I like the adventure and the mystery that's going on with the like dark witches, and less so when it gets into like the cutesy villager stuff. Okay, we have 2 books left. I also read How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying by Django Wexler. I'm a big Django Wexler fan. I've read his other series that I can never remember what it's called, but it's the one that starts with Ashes of the Sun. I loved that trilogy, and this is his newest release, and this is a farce fantasy about Davi, who is from Earth and has been dropped into this fantasy world because there's a prophecy that she will end the reign of the Dark Lord, and she has been trying to defeat the Dark Lord for like 200 lives, and every time she dies she resets to the same place, much like a video game, and has to begin again. And this time on like life 230 something, she's like, fuck it, instead of trying to defeat the Dark Lord, why don't I just try to become the Dark Lord? And this is so fun. It's raunchy, it's a little bit vulgar, it's got a lot of gore, but it was so funny and so like lighthearted, even though there's a lot of like violence and like torture and, you know, not lighthearted stuff, but the tone is really fun and really lighthearted, and I just thought this was such a romp, and I had such a good time, and I gave it 5 stars. I'm really excited for book 2 whenever that comes out. Stupid series. I don't know why I thought this was going to be a standalone. I mean, I realized pretty quickly it was not going to be a standalone, but before it came out I thought it was going to be a standalone. It's not. It's got a big ol' cliffhanger, so just, you know, but it was really fun. And I think if you're looking for fantasy that's a little bit more lighthearted, but not short on like the action and adventure, this is a good one to check out. Along those lines, same themes, I also read Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames, which is also action-packed adventure fantasy that is a little bit more on the lighthearted side. So this is about a band of mercenaries who have been broken up for about 20 years, and so they're all in their 40s, they all, you know, have their own lives, and one of them comes back because his daughter is in danger and he needs to get the band back together to help him rescue her. And I thought this was really fun. Nicholas Ames based the 5 main characters off of the like different roles of like a rock and roll band. So like one person is like the drummer, one is like the guitar player, you know, stuff like that. So that was really fun. Like, and it's kind of, once you know that, it's kind of easy to tell who is who in this book. So I thought this was really fun. Was definitely lighthearted, not short on the action though, and pretty funny in places. I just talked about this in like my most recent vlog, but I said that, you know, this book does not pass the Bechdel test in any way, shape, or form, which is unfortunate, but it's just not that. It's just not that kind of book, and I don't read bro fantasy very often anymore, but I had a really fun time with this, and I'm interested in picking up more from Nicholas Ames because I thought he did the thing in this one. Like, he landed the plane. And he did a good job, so I'm interested to read more from him. All right, and there we have it. That's all 20 books that I read in June. Hopefully it is easy to tell from this wrap up that how much fun I had with pretty much all of my books in June, and I am just so thankful to have such a good reading month and have so many favorites. It was a good time. This is gonna be a hard month to beat going into July. But July is also my favorite month, so I think we can do it. So if you would like to leave a comment, I would love to know what your favorite book was that you read this month or in June. Time travel makes it's confusing me. But yeah, what was your favorite book that you read in June? Maybe what your least favorite book was. If you know your hater side needs to come out a little bit, I'm here for you. If you want to just leave an emoji to let me know that you are here, let's do a rainbow emoji, of course. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Bye!